Welcome to Inspenet TV. We are at the AMP Conference and Expo right here in Denver 2023. I'm with Kailey Dharam. She's with Dairyland Electrical Industries. Kailey, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit, just before we get into this topic that we want to talk about, which is about leadership in the industry. Tell me a little bit about Dairyland. What are you guys doing here at the Expo?
Absolutely. So we were part of NACE before it merged with SSPC and became AMP. And we are a manufacturing and electrical engineering company. We manufacture solid state decouplers used in many applications, including anti-corrosion.
Okay, awesome. Kailey, one of the things that you wanted to talk to us about is the importance of leadership and teamwork in the energy sector, and how to create more well-rounded professionals that can execute every day. Talk to me about this topic, because you suggested it. You want to bring this topic here. So tell me a little bit about what you're thinking.
Absolutely. So I am part of a community that is really trying to think about what are the other aspects that make well-rounded professionals in the industry. We're actually holding a leadership forum on Wednesday of this week just to delve into specific areas of leadership that help us grow as leaders to influence people and achieve the results that we want to achieve. And so I think one of the things that's been so helpful about AMP is that there are incredible resources to advance technical topics, right? We can go through certifications and training series and individual standalone sessions, and those are great, but if we neglect kind of this whole person perspective, we're limited in some ways. And so right. I think it's just exciting to think about what are the other missing components that we need as individuals, that we need together. So.
Right, and so I'm assuming all this plays into the role that leadership plays in this industry. Yeah, how do you think that people can really distinguish themselves as leaders, in this industry?
It's a great question. Well, there's so many different philosophies of leadership. I tend to be a big fan of servant leadership, of looking at opportunities to help other people, to identify a need, to help empower people who may not have the confidence to go and take on that new opportunity. And so, So I think sometimes standing out is also letting other people stand out. I think being willing to serve, to show up, to listen really well, to connect with other people. One of the things I love about our industry is that it's very relational. And so just by showing up and saying hello to people, expressing curiosity, I think goes a long way. And you can just build on it from there.
Do you think this industry is, has a limitation whether people are more introverted or extroverted?
That's a good question. Just in talking to the people that I know, there's a lot of people who I expect to be extroverts just because they're wonderful conversationalists, they have high energy, and they'll admit to me, I'm actually an introvert. And so I think that you can be either and really thrive in the industry, and it's just about knowing how am I filled up and how can I be authentically myself and connect to other people.
From my personal experience, my background isn't really related to coding or energy sector, but one thing that I've noticed covering these conferences is just the depth of knowledge that people have. And so whether they're introverts or extroverts doesn't really matter because they're just, they have so much knowledge that they're happy to come to these conferences and share with people and just learn from each other.
Yeah.
So I think these types of conferences really bring them out, and not to mention that this conference, they confirmed to me last night that there's going to be more than 6,000 participants and more than 450 companies. So I don't know, as introverted as people might seem, they're here. Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah, Kailey, quick question. Talk to me a little bit about how you see business as a force for good, particularly in this industry.
Yeah. So I would say we as Dairyland have been on this journey more clearly for the last 5 years, and just realized that business has such a potential to sustain good, right? There is an income source, there is so much structure around how a business operates, and then when channeled in great directions, we can do a lot of good. And so I think so many of the companies that are here and the individuals that lead them, that work in them, are about making a safer and better world, so that in itself, whether that's a service that's provided or a product, is already going so far. Right. But I think then kind of connecting that idea of leadership, when we're able to be intentional in how we're running our companies, how we're interacting with teams internally and externally, kind of what else we do, whether that's generosity and charitable partnerships or volunteering. There are so many ways that I think this industry is well positioned to lead and to have impact.
Yeah, and so I kind of wanted to ask, touching on that, do you think that, this industry and leadership industry, how it can relate or how it can affect other sub-industries as well, or just, even people's families that are here today?
That's great. I mean, I believe that we can have impact at so many different levels, right? We can have impact within our organizations that affects us as individuals. It affects our teams that we interface with, that community geographically around us, and then the industry. So I think if we're practicing it and we're modeling it and it's having an impact, I think that spreads. I mean, I tend to be a little bit of an idealist and an optimist, but I just think that we long to be part of something that is bigger than us, that is impactful, that has purpose. And so I think that's compelling. I think that we want to be part of that. And so absolutely it can spread to subgroups. It might even start as a subgroup and then impact the larger industry.
I wanted to ask you, more specifically about Dairyland, and maybe you could bring some examples about leadership that you see in your day-to-day, or that you've experienced in at your company, and just give us a little bit more of an insight into the corporate culture that you guys have.
Sure. Yeah. So we're a small private company, which maybe has some of its own unique challenges. I think is really special. We get to know everyone who's on our team. I think about 5 years ago, we got really intentional about our values and then created what we call the Live Engaged initiative from that, which is really a way of kind of focusing in on how do we invest in ourselves, realizing if my tank is empty, I am not much good to anyone else. But then how do we also show up for our circles, the people that are closest to us, whether that's family or friends or our coworkers, impact the community, and then even partner to transform the world. And so we've tried to create programming around that, communication around that, everything from a paid volunteer program to launching what we call the Live Engaged Volunteer Day, where we just invite anyone in the industry, join us during this single week in October, volunteer in your own local community, and let's see that impact that we're having together.
Fantastic.
Those would just be a couple that come to mind.
Sorry, what was the name of the initiative?
The Live Engaged Volunteer Day is the event in the industry, and our Live Engaged initiative is kind of what we try to live out every day.
Oh, cool. And so that applies not only to work that you guys have internally, but things you do in your community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of think about this idea of business as a force for good at Dairyland. That takes the form of our Live Engaged initiative. But so many other organizations have incredible things that they're doing. And so we want to be champions of that, celebrating that, and then inviting other people into living with purpose and impact.
Cool. Awesome. Kailey, just one more question before we start wrapping up. And, just going back to, leadership, but also we want to talk about teamwork. Yeah. And so what do you think the impact of teamwork is in the energy sector?
I just don't think that we can do things alone. I know that's true of my own personal experience, and to think that we can't is maybe naive. Sometimes I think it can be a little bit arrogant. It feels good if we accomplish it on our own, right? But I think it's so much more rewarding to work with other people.
Right.
Just to give one example from the Dairyland context, so many of our products or the new markets that we've entered into have come because we are collaborating with customers and other friends in the industry, and they say, hey, we have a problem, and we start to try to solve it together. And I think that is how we're going to continue to move forward, not just in new products, but in partnerships, in local change, global change, and that's really exciting.
Cool. No, that's awesome, and I totally agree. I think it's super important. I think something that I've noticed is that in this industry, at the end of the day, there's usually, one responsible person for something. It might be something really important, but the fact is that they always have someone behind them watching their back, double checking their work. There's generally someone higher up that they have to consult with. So, while some responsibilities might seem individual, at the end of the day, there's definitely a lot of people surrounding you.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and it's not something you can get done really. I don't think there's anything in this industry that you could really get done just entirely on your own.
Well said.
Yeah. Well, great. Kailey Dharam, Executive VP of Culture and Formation for Dairyland Electrical. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for all that you're doing, for your leadership and your teamwork that you are modeling and not just asking me questions about.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, thank you so much from Inspenet TV. We're a great team here. We're super happy that you see that. Thank you so much.